You're now listening to the sound of This Week in 1984. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in 1984. I'm your host, Nathan, and I am joined by my two good friends, Ben and Jake. Gentlemen, welcome to 1984.
Woohoo! Happy to be here, Nathan.
Oh,
boy,
man.
Howdy.
Well, we are, of course, living in the dystopian nightmare that is...
I was born in 1984. I live in 1984. I'll die in 1984.
Well, Jake, that's true. And that's why we're doing this podcast called This Week in 1984. Now, some people might think that they're living in the year 2021, but that's pretty silly, right, guys?
Oh, man. I don't know there's ever been anything more silly than that.
Nathan, we can't talk about that too much more. This isn't a comedy show.
You're absolutely right, Ben. We are dead serious, and to prove it, we are going to give you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories from this week in 1984. Jake, what's our first story from this week in 1984?
Well, the Times posted an article, and this is the title. I was sexually assaulted in uniform. I can't get over it. Shocking allegations are surfacing in the military. So this article goes on to describe how shocking it is that many young women have been recruited to become soldiers from the ages of, the first time they saw a Disney princess fighting or whatever on screen, or Scarlett Johansson in black leather. Surprising, shocking that when you put these women in isolated situations on the battlefield around a whole bunch of men, that they are sexually assaulted, and it's gone unreported and been hidden and covered up because the military wants to promote women in these positions. They can't let you know how dangerous it is or how difficult a job they have sort of managing these brutes.
That's weird to me. It's weird that there would be any problem with putting the life givers into a warrior type scenario. It's weird. It's weird that there was
shocking. I think.
Yeah, it is. Well, the allegations are shocking. It's right there in the article.
Very shocking. Yes.
Well, that's the first thing that's happening this week in 1984. Ben, you want to tell us the next thing that's happening?
I sure do, Nathan. The next thing is that Wikipedia has changed its tune about cultural Marxism. It's now a conspiracy theory, according to their current version of the article. Well, obviously, that's true. And I think that they're just making an understandable correction to a 2014 version of the article. You could find cached if you use the Wayback Machine, I think it's called, or whatever, to go find their old version of their cultural Marxism article, which talks about cultural Marxism as though it's a thing that developed historically from certain ideologues in the Marxist school that we've talked about before on this show, but understandably they correct that.
Yeah.
And now it's a, let's see, quote, far-right anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
It's also racist.
Right.
Yeah, and I want to applaud Wikipedia here and now on our segment This Week in 1984 for some important cleanup and correction.
As a far-right anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist, I'm really angry about this change.
You know what, Nathan? You would be.
A hat tip to Twitter user Amogus for that one.
Yes, thank you, Amogus. This theory claims that an elite of Marxist theorists, I'm just reading a little bit more because I think people need to know about these things so they can fight them. Frankfurt School intellectuals are subverting Western society with a culture war that undermines the Christian values of traditional conservatism and promotes the cultural liberal values of the 1960s counterculture. Because it's not like any of our elites or people in the media or anything like that would just say that they'd like to undermine traditional conservatism and promote cultural values of the 1960s.
Well, I also appreciate how this new article draws some lines for us. Like, for instance, cultural Marxism has roots, quote, roots in the Nazi propaganda term cultural bolshevism. That's good. That's good. I think Nazis and people who talk about cultural Marxism, they go together.
And I just think Mein Kampf, my favorite book.
Apparently.
Jake, what else is going on here in the wonderful world of 1984?
Well, the New York Times published an article And here's their own summary from it from their Twitter handle. With 6,000 residents, a McDonald's drive-thru, bars, and ball fields, the Guantanamo Bay Navy base is more than one big prison. It has the trappings of small-town America and the amenities of a college campus. And I would just like to say that I think the comparison between an offshore illegal torture center and today's modern college campus is very apropos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, New York Times.
Thank you, New York Times.
Thank you, New York Times.
I think we're going to be saying thank you, New York Times, a lot if this becomes an ongoing segment. Well, guys, I've got the next one, which is, maybe you heard, this is a tragic story. People were injured and killed in Waukesha after a car drove through a parade.
I think cars have been getting really dark lately.
Yeah.
Maybe we should ban cars. Why would cars do such a thing?
I don't know. It's just terrible to think that that's what would happen.
I have a different headline here. Two, similar, some fatalities and multiple people injured after car drives through parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Local police say.
I like that. It's very clean because until you don't want to involve people and their motives until
you would never
know what you're talking about.
Ever want to drag somebody's name through the mud or like go through their social media history and uncover like the motives that drive them or anything. Because it's the car that does the driving.
Which is why the Kyle Rittenhouse case was really just reported as gun kills 2 people.
Yeah.
Or wait, no. For some reason, they didn't do that, actually. They just...
I was so confused.
They talked about Rittenhouse. But you'd think, to be consistent, it should have just said...
I think they slandered that gun. Didn't they call it like a mass shooting gun? Is that what the Gospel Coalition said?
Well...
But they corrected it.
Yeah.
To, what did they correct it to? Armed shooting gun.
Yeah, an armed shooting gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to use an unarmed shooting gun. I mean,
similar to the ones... Yeah.
Oh boy, guys! Well, it is exciting times here in 1984. What else is going on there, Jake?
Well, there was a viral video that was posted.
So sweet,
very sweet. Mary lives in a nursing home. She's 92. She's been married for 70 years. She hasn't been able to see her husband, who's 95, for 10 months because of COVID. Finally, they were reunited, and so we have this video of 92-year-old woman getting to see her 95-year-old husband of 70 years for the first time in nearly a year, while the nurses keep touching them and holding on to them with their masks and their gloves. And I Can't Help Falling in Love with You is playing. So whoever made the video decided to play that.
Mm-hmm. It's just a sweet story of...
Yeah, except for some reason I feel incredibly angry about the whole thing.
Well,
I can't explain why.
That's why we have our 10 minutes of hate. No, I don't understand why. It fills me with rage. Everything about the video, the schmaltzy hipster version of the Elvis song, it fills me with inexplicable rage. But
it should be sweet that they get to be reunited after being separated for 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, I find myself just very, very angry at it all.
I don't know why. I mean, obviously it makes sense that they couldn't see each other for 10 months.
Yeah, it does. I mean, if you wanna live, you have to do some pretty weird things to lives.
If you want to live, you have to do some pretty weird things to lives.
Speaking of which, I have the next one, which is that CNN is tweeting about people wondering about how we're gonna survive. Just generally survive if Roe v. Wade is taken down.
Well, it is hard to imagine.
How will we survive?
How will
without women's reproductive rights in this country? Don't conservatives understand that this court decision will impact women?
Well, the birth rate might go up, which would drive population, which would drive the climate, and bring about the apocalypse. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So the answer is we won't. Our planet is doomed if Roe v. Wade is overturned.
Man.
Well, what else is going on, Jake, in 1984?
In 1984, our last great culture warrior and hero is J.K. Rowling.
Yes.
The author of the hit children's series Harry Potter.
Well, I thought my understanding is she's a monster who hates trans people.
You could say that, and if you were of that opinion, you might be one of the types of people who went and found out where she lived and took pictures in front of her house, positioning yourself to ensure that the address was visible so that People could come and do damage to her or her house and continue to threaten her, including threaten to rape her, actually, as she reports.
You know, she doesn't agree with the consensus view and shows she deserves to be destroyed. And I think that the people that took those pictures should be defended. And I'm glad to see that Twitter and many of the people on there are defending this act of so-called doxing. Because here in 1984, we need to liquidate people like J.K. Rowling.
Well, anyone who's going to threaten someone's very identity, the center of their personhood, is dangerous. And I want to know where those people live. Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, listen, speaking of that, peanut butter drag shows. Does anything say 1984 like a Kraft peanut butter drag gender identity show for children?
Yeah, speaking of identity.
Tell us about that, Ben or Jake.
I think you already said it all, Nathan. I don't know what you want me to say.
Well, I can tell you guys. So Kraft peanut butter at an early age. Kraft peanut butter being, of course, who we look to learn about our sexual proclivities. So on this Trans Day of Remembrance, we've partnered with Faye and Fluffy's Storytime for a special reading of our storybook, Him, Her, Them, and Theirs, to help start the conversation. And we have, looks like maybe two biological men dressed in
drag.
Some very colorful drag outfits.
You know, what I want to say is, what better food to represent their cause than peanut butter? It's so malleable.
Right.
Just do anything you want with it.
And they're nuts. No, I'm sorry.
That was smooth.
That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. This helps the idea go down smoother. Here in 1984. Well, guys, Jake is shaking his head.
I have nothing to say.
Jake?
About anything that just happened on this show. Nothing whatsoever.
Do we need to have you liquidated?
It's possible. Maybe you could just reprogram me so I can finally learn to love Big Brother.
What do you think, Ben? Reprogrammation or liquidation?
Yeah, I mean, either one's fine. You know, I think either one protects the vulnerable.
Yes,
from Jake.
All right. Well, we can figure that. We don't have to just have that discussion on mic. We can figure it out.
Yeah.
And anything else you guys want to say from this beautiful day here in 1984?
No, I don't think so. That's got it covered.
No.
Yeah. Well, let me tell our listeners some things not to do. Do not support a show named Sound of Sanity at patreon.com/Sound of Sanity. That show is retrograde and
hog swallop.
Hog swallop, yes. Mm-hmm. That's the very word that I was looking for. It's hog swallop. It's cod swallop. It's all kinds of things.
Cod swallop.
It's not good.
The point is, it betrays the narrative.
It betrays the narrative. And here in 1984, it's all about maintaining the narrative. So don't go to patreon.com/Sound of Sanity. Do not support that show for the low price of a cup of coffee a month. And until next time, here in 1984,
stay insane.